Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Tech Tuesday, high quality with low tech tools in an educational setting. Uh, my name is Ramin Yazdanpana. Please take a moment to introduce yourselves in the chat. Let us know where you're joining us from and what program you are currently working in. So happy to be here today, and thank you for your presence today as well. Uh, just a couple of items here before we jump into the webinar. Again, my name is Ramin Yazdanpana. I'm the director of Full Circle Language Learning. I'm also an IPDE senior course developer. Here's my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me directly to connect with me about anything that we discuss here today in our Tech Tuesday presentation and just to talk shop, okay? Would love to connect with you all. If you have any questions, please type it into the Q&A option. You all will be muted during this, but I will be asking you to engage and to contribute throughout the presentation today. I recognize you all as wonderful people, amazing experts with so much to contribute to our topic today. So I'm going to ask you to do that so we can all benefit. So I'm just looking here at our great start here. We have great folks from Duval, from Sumter Correctional Institution. Caroline is also Madison CI, Mata from Columbia CI. So a lot of great folks from doing great work and important work in correctional institutions across the state. Clearwater, all across. So I just wanted to recognize that we have just great educators in different settings across the state. So this is a great opportunity to exchange, to connect, and to continue to cultivate a community of practice collectively. So a brief overview of what we're going to discuss here today. So the why, we're going to discuss planning for limited resource settings, and also why it's important to consider not only for inside of the classroom, but also outside of the classroom where students' access to resources may vary, right? So we're also going to discuss the what of tools and approaches for integrating technology, specifically frameworks that we can utilize to consider how to plan and apply technology for different resource environments. Okay, so this isn't just for low technology, low resource environments, but from low to high, and understanding that we're not labeling low as bad or limited and high as better and unlimited, but it's just that they're a spectrum of resources that we can select from, a tool set that we as educators can determine what is appropriate to support our learners and our instruction. And then how, right? Applying low-tech tools to support learning. We'll analyze examples of how we can scaffold the use of technology across different skill areas. I'm going to share some great resources with you that I think you'll find useful in this kind of pursuit of always analyzing and applying technology to support our teaching and our learners' learning. Okay, why? Planning for limited resource settings. So a bit of rationale. So we're all here, we all get it, we all understand that understanding technology and understanding how to apply technology is important. It's more important than ever. But we also have to understand that they're tools to support our instruction of different competencies. So we can use these available resources to maximize impact for these developing competencies. And we should, of course, use technology for the purpose of supporting and enhancing teaching and learning. So this can be across different competencies, such as language and communication, reasoning and critical thinking, digital literacy and skills, math, right? GED preparation, workforce training, all kinds of different areas. So I just wanted to ask you, what competency areas do you focus on in your classes. If you can just share one or two words about that in the chat so we can, again, all get familiar with our work here today. We're also developing collaborative skills to overcome hurdles and solve problems. So skills to support and lead colleagues, right? So this is true for ourselves as educators, and is true for our students as learners and leaders, both inside of the classroom and beyond the classroom. We're also utilizing these technologies to provide and receive constructive feedback towards our learning. We all know that, you know, giving it our best and receiving feedback on what we're doing well and areas that we need to work on are key, right? Are essential for the learning process. So we can leverage technologies, again, both low to high tech technologies for that. And also to engage in the process of learning outside of class. As much as we can accomplish inside of class, it's limited. Even if we can meet every day with our students, it's still limited. We need to provide tools where students can continue the learning process, continue to reinforce skills, language, strategies that they're learning inside of the classroom, outside of the classroom, independently and cooperatively. Okay, so these are all areas where all students can use support, and teachers could use support, right? Strategies, resources to address immediate and future life, academic, and professional goals and needs. So I'm just gonna pause here to look at the chat to see kind of different competency areas that we focus on in programs. Maria says GED, Rob, language communication, critical thinking, GED. Kimberly, administrative office specialists. I need one of those. Mata, basic math and finances. Gonzalo, clarity of communication, depth of thought and communication. Brittany, GED, especially math. And Caroline, language communication, critical thinking, and basic skills before the GED. So I'm seeing a lot of, aside from kind of academic skills, also clarity of communication, critical thinking, deeper kind of analysis skills. Of course, those are important for the GED, our coursework, and beyond, right, for the professional world as well. So we're looking at, I'm curious to know, what are some of the goals of your learners, right? We talked about how we can utilize the importance of utilizing resources to address learner goals. What are some of the goals of your learners? If you could share that with us, again, one or two words in the chat, that would allow us to better understand your learners as well. And while you do that, I'm gonna keep on going. Thank you all for your excellent participation and collaboration here. I really appreciate it. I feel you out there, and I appreciate your support. And finally, we have monitoring and evaluation, right? So low-cost assessment tools to provide feedback, track attendance, and persistence in learning, right? So this is so important to not only track attendance, but to track persistence and award persistence. Persistence is key in the learning process, and we should praise the process of learning, not only the product of learning. So praising persistence is so important. If we can track that, if we can share that with learners and highlight that and celebrate that and reward them for that, it's so important. As well as to analyze progress in learning through journals, through portfolios, whether they be using kind of low-tech tools like paper and pencil and a notebook, or whether they be online, right, through a blog or through a Google document or whatever you might be using. Also to collect qualitative feedback to adapt to evolving needs. So this process of ongoing needs analysis, both by teacher and students, is an essential aspect of understanding areas of strength to leverage, right? So not just areas to address of need or deficit, but also understanding areas that they're doing well, right? And praise them for that, leverage those in class. Maybe one student's strength is another student's weakness. So that can be really informative when we're putting students together and for kind of cooperative and collaborative activities. But also addressing needs, right? Through follow-up activities that are focused on those specific areas. And those could be kind of global areas of need within the class, like everyone might need some support in a given area, or more specific areas where you can kind of identify, okay, this student could use some more follow-up activities, whether they be paper-based kind of activities and exercises, or if you're working with some kind of program where you can say, okay, focus on this specific skill area, this specific kind of competency area. So it's really informing us as teachers and as our students, as learners, in understanding how to be more strategic in the process of learning. And that leads us to this impact-driven metrics. So as an additional way to show measurable skill gains for program reporting, and it's going to also be there to increase learner confidence, to more specifically show how they're making gains, right? And so this can, of course, is so important because it can sustain motivation, and motivation is needed to persist in learning. And we need to be reminded of how we're making, even if they're small gains, how we're making them, how we're progressing. This is all contributes to learner success to attain academic and professional goals. Okay, I'm just going to pause here a little bit to read some of your comments. Yeah, students' goals are GED to improve their reading. Let me see here. I'm sorry. Here's some other goals here. Be able to continue their learning, notes, and assignments out of the classroom. It's very important, Maria. Citizenship, career goals, American culture. Thank you, Cristina. Mata, be able to handle a checking account, build credit, other things they need when they return home. I love that. Very immediate needs, right? Very practical, immediate needs that they can see impacts. Learning a new language and improving communication skills, achieving a certain weight in health class. I hear you. My dog and I both are currently applying that pursuit. And yeah, becoming proficient and using technology for work. Excellent. Okay, fantastic. Thank you for sharing some of these goals. Again, always thinking about, I think it's helpful to think about what are immediate goals, right? And what are kind of longer term goals or goals that may take longer to achieve. I think that's helpful to ask our learners what those goals are, and then we can start thinking about strategies and maybe a timeline, right? A realistic timeline of what it takes to kind of achieve those goals at certain levels. Okay, thank you all for your contributions. Okay, so what tools and approaches for integrating technology? So if you can just answer this one at a time. So the first question with either A or B. Which of the following best describes learners in your program? A, have relatively low digital literacy, or B, have relatively high digital literacy? So I'm looking here, we're getting some A's, relatively low. Is that a song? A lot of A's. Okay, relatively low digital literacy. Thank you for those contributions. So that much more of an importance to maybe start with tools that are low tech, and then to scaffold into more higher tech uses of technology. And we're going to look at some aspects of that. So everyone answered low. Thank you for that. The second question, which of the following best describes learners in your program? A, need more guided support with learning activities. B, need more rigor with learning activities. Or C, both A and B. Okay, we're getting a lot of C's. We get an A, a lot of C's, right? And generally that's true, that learners need both, right? At some kind of level. So of course, with our lower level students, yes, they need more guided support. I always say that even higher level students, very communicative, very proficient students, also need guided support. That guided support maybe can be less extended of a time where that support is given. But I have found that even providing high proficiency students with that guided support, just to reinforce and build confidence earlier on, is also helpful. Okay, it's helpful for me, right? As a, let's say, a low advanced, high intermediate Spanish learner, I love being able to get into easier kind of activities to reinforce, refresh what I know. and then get into more kind of challenging or rigorous learning activities, right? Where there I will need more guided support, right? So the more difficult the activity, the more support and scaffolding I will need. Okay, so, and the last one, number 3, which of the following best describes learners in your program? So A, have no access to computers, B, have computers with offline access, or C, have computers with online access. Okay, so we're getting a lot of B's. Of course, we have Christina. Just that does count, but not with this question. Okay, so just looking at computers right now. Yeah, so we're getting a lot of B's. We had some C's, great, and of course that's all context dependent, right? We saw that some of our colleagues here today are in correctional institutions that either have no access to computers or have computers with offline access, right? So there's some constraints there. And then, generally, if we're outside of that correctional facility context, we have our programs have computers with online access. Christina makes a great point that also, even if you don't have like set computers, many of our students, if they're outside of that correctional institution, have smartphones that can be accessed to. Thank you, Christina. All right. Okay, so a couple of learner settings here. All right, some of these terms may be familiar to you, some may be new. So here we go. So a first term is this different learner settings. So one is an instructor-led synchronous learning. So this can be a brick and mortar classroom or online, but it's real time, like we're talking right now, right? If you're joining us live, everyone here, Rob, Christina, Susan, Caroline, Paul, all of you all, we're live right now. Okay, so this is kind of a synchronous learning. It's one-way synchronous because I'm the only one that can talk. So it's not a two-way kind of synchronous learning, but it's live. Then we have instructor-led asynchronous learning. And that, again, can be brick and mortar classroom or online, but instruction is recorded or provided so students can access materials and participate in activities with more flexibility and at different times. So for example, if you're viewing the recording of this webinar, maybe you recorded something and then later provided it offline, right, for access to students. So of course, maybe you have a mix, maybe you have blended learning, maybe you have also, synchronous learning as well as asynchronous learning. Then we have self-directed learning. This can be low or high tech, but involves students engaged in a self-study, either following the directions of the instructor or resource or curriculum or following their own learning plan. And then finally, we have this next term here, peer-supported learning. So this is where students work cooperatively, contributing their support and feedback to accomplish an objective, or collaboratively to complete a project or create something original. So this can be done through synchronous or asynchronous interaction in class or online. So again, just providing these kind of different contexts and scenarios just to kind of start getting some ideas of like, okay, here's my different contexts, here are my different, areas where I can provide instruction. Some of you can provide all of this instruction. Some of you may be limited, okay, to certain kind of instruction. So just identifying what are the different learner settings and, when we are planning for instruction and technology use. Yeah, Rob, I'm just reading your comment here. My students are often comfortable with their phones, but have no idea what to do on their desktop or laptop. Thank you, Rob, for that. Okay, so just to briefly provide an idea of how we can categorize technology resources, one is low-tech tools, okay? Now, when we're looking at these, let's not think good or bad, better or worse, okay? We're just understanding our tool set here. So we have low-tech tools, pencils, pens, markers, highlighters, paper, note cards, posters, whiteboard, dictionary, books, mid-tech tools, and excuse me, let me back up here. So low-tech tools can also be defined as simple, non-electronic tools that are inexpensive, relatively inexpensive, and easy to use, often requiring no special training. Not always, but often, okay? Then we have mid-tech tools. So mid-tech tools are those that require batteries or simple electronics, more complex than low-tech tools, but less expensive than high-tech tools, and may require some training. So for example, calculators, audio video players, keyboards, digital audio video recorders. And then we have high-tech tools, and these are more complex electronic devices, often requiring advanced processors and potentially specialized training. So for example, computers and learning management systems, smartphones, mobile applications, online and offline tools and software. And so we can see here that how these kinds of tools align with activities, right? So we have the tools here, low tech, mid tech, high tech, as well as some different activities. Again, just looking at here and saying, starting to do our own analysis, right, of what tools are available to you and your learners, what low-tech tools are available, what mid-tech tools are available, and what high-tech tools are available. Just to do a kind of audit of the availability there for yourself, and then also to share those with students. Because sometimes students don't know what resources are available to them, and then furthermore, how to apply them, okay, and how to apply them effectively. So we're going to look a little bit more at that. So some activities aligned with these tools for low-tech activities, reading, writing, drawing, painting, games, especially board games, right? Manipulatives, okay? Mid-tech activities, keyboarding, typing, reading with audio, online, offline research, making calculations, and then high-tech activities, multimedia production, web authoring, programming. So those are just to kind of start brainstorming, okay, what are some activities that we could potentially do that, that utilize and leverage those resources, okay? So again, this could be a good exercise for you to do, is to just write down what low-tech, mid-tech, high-tech tools are available to you and your students, and start to brainstorm what activities could be done utilizing those tools. Okay, so we are going to now, I'm going to share a resource that I think is pretty awesome. I think you are going to think they're pretty awesome, both for your own use and hopefully to share with your colleagues as well. Okay, it's always my intention to share resources as well as frameworks and strategies that you can then share with your colleagues and with your students. In this way, when you share something, when you explain something to your colleagues, to your students, it reinforces it for you, okay? Just like me presenting here is reinforcing these concepts for me. So I really encourage you to apply this protege effect, is what it's called, and that which has been shown like the best way to learn something and to really kind of deeply conceptualize and understand something is to share it and to teach it. Okay, so I'm hoping that's what we're going to do here with this technology integration matrix. So before I jump into reading the slide, let me just explain to you that actually this technology integration matrix, or TIM, it's a project from the Florida Center for Instructional Technology at the University of South Florida. So big shout out to our friends at USF. TIM provides a framework for describing and targeting the use of technology to enhance learning. The TIM incorporates 5 interdependent characteristics of meaningful learning environments. And we see them here: active learning, collaborative learning, constructive learning, authentic learning, and goal-directed learning, okay? And we're gonna go over that here shortly. But they're gonna also, they combine those with, and we're gonna look at these next, these levels of technology integration, right? And that's these different levels of entry, adoption, adaptation, infusion, and transformation. So let's just go over them one by one, just so we're familiar with them, and then we're gonna look at the matrix, okay? So the first here is active learning. So active learning, it's the first characteristic of technology use, is where students are actively engaged in using technology as a tool rather than passively receiving information from technology. Active learning. The next is collaborative learning. Students use technology tools to collaborate with others rather than working individually at all times. Collaborative learning. The third is constructive learning. Students use technology tools to connect information to their prior knowledge rather than to passively receive information. Constructive learning. Fourth is authentic learning. Students use technology tools to link learning activities to the world beyond the instructional setting or the classroom, rather than working on decontextualized assignments. So that's number four, authentic learning. And five or fifth is goal-directed learning. Students use technology tools to set goals, plan activities, monitor progress, and evaluate results rather than simply completing assignments without reflection. So this is where that kind of critical thinking, more deeper thinking is. So these characteristics of technology use for learning. A wonderful framework to analyze, right, our own use of technology, and our really just our instruction and our activities in general. Are they active? Are they collaborative? Are they constructive? Are they authentic? Are they goal directed? Right? Okay. All right, now we're going to look at the levels of technology integration, okay, as part of this matrix. So we saw these characteristics of technologies for learning. Now let's look at how we can address them at different levels. Okay, now what I would like to say that let's not think about these levels again as like the best versus the worst. It's kind of like Bloom's taxonomy, right? Where you have these orders of learning, where sometimes, you have to start at lower order thinking skills before you get to these kind of higher order thinking skills. Sometimes we want to start at this entry level, okay? And that's effective for a certain objective for teaching and learning before getting all the way to a transformation level. All right, so let's keep an open mind about these and consider how we can utilize these in our own teaching. So we have entry level, and the teacher uses technology tools to deliver curriculum content to students. So let me ask you, maybe in the chat, if you can write a number 1 for entry level, and then maybe just an example of how you use technology to deliver curriculum content to students. So this is more like teacher kind of focused here to deliver content. So if you can think of some examples that you utilize, for example, like a smart board or a projector or a radio, or there we go, Suzanne, thank you, PowerPoint, lessons on a smart board, PowerPoint on a smart TV, using K-Lite to demonstrate a math problem on smartboard. Excellent. Okay. Yeah, our tutors run a YouTube channel. So they're delivering content there. Incorporate like video, right? From like, for example, TED Talks. Excellent. Thank you all for those great examples. The next level of technology integration is the teacher directs students in the use of technology tools. So this is where we're starting to kind of like help students to adapt and to learn how to use that tool. What are some tools that you all find that you need to help learners adapt or adopt, excuse me, and learn how to use? What are some examples of those kind of tools? So Cassidy says students use this website, ellie.com, to complete lessons. So you might want to scaffold like, okay, here are some different resources this you can utilize that adoption to help with your specific needs. The mouse, yeah, exactly. AI, doing some simple researches, just being aware of how we can adopt AI tools. Then we have like how to Google, yeah, quick key commands, all just kind of like an awareness here, right? Of tools that we can adopt that are gonna help to address our learning goals and needs. Then we have this adaptation level. So the teacher facilitates student exploration and use of technology. So that's the kind of next step, right? After the awareness, how can we then practice, right? Using AI, using the mouse, using the keyboard, using the calculator, using these online or offline resources, okay? So awareness and then application maybe is how we can think of adoption and adaptation. And then next is the infusion level. The teacher provides the learning context and students choose the technology tools. So you can see how this is now a little bit less teacher controlled and it's more choice, right? So let me ask you all, what are some examples of activities where students maybe kind of have some more choice in what technology they use? And I've heard some good examples. I was just at a great workshop at Homes CI, and there were some good good examples of this using software that's available there, the Atlo software. So here we go. So Heather says open format assignments. Yeah. So, just kind of just saying, hey, here's what we're working on, but it's an open format, maybe of how you produce, right? And demonstrate kind of learning. So Thomas says design. Yeah. Group work and design, saying, okay, this is what we're working on here, but you can choose what kind of design you want to apply here. There you go, Mata, the Atlo. I was just saying that, right? During work time, our students can use the Atlo or books to study. They can choose what they want to specifically focus on. Yeah, Stephanie, nice. How do you want to communicate with your child's teacher? So giving them, say, hey, here's these different, rationales and approaches, right? But how do you want to, right? Getting their input on how they want to be able to communicate, applying their needs and their personalities, right? To support their children. Great example there, Stephanie. And then Kimberly, again for the Atlo. Finally, we have transformation level. So the teacher encourages innovative use of technology tools to facilitate higher order learning activities. So this is a transformational level. Okay, so we're going to look at some examples of this transformational level. Maybe we can think of transformational level as like project-based learning, something where they're creating something collaboratively, okay, to create something new, to address a problem. Maybe it's their own problem, but maybe it's a problem kind of bigger than themselves, and kind of come up with something that transforms them in a way that where they are kind of have moved beyond just maybe independent thought to more kind of collaborative thought and creation. Okay. I'm going to let you all answer Gonzalo there about Atlo while I move on. So if someone can provide some a response there to Gonzalo about Atlo. Okay, how? Applying low to high-tech tools to support learning. Okay, so we're going to analyze, actually, hold on a second. I'm going too quickly here. Let's look at this matrix here. I promised you to look at the matrix. So here's the matrix. Okay, here's the TIM site. All right, I'm going to copy this here and put it in the chat for you all. So this is that link to the technology integration matrix. And we can see here, right? We can see that we have these different characteristics. So we have active, collaborative, constructive, authentic, goal-directed across these different levels, okay, of application, right? So we have entry level, adoption, adaption, infusion, and transformation. I'm going to make this a little larger here. This website's pretty awesome. I have to give it up to the folks at USF who put together this resource, because it's not only informative, but it's responsive too, right? So for example, if we look at entry level here, the intersection of entry, okay, level, and let's say active learning. Okay, I'm gonna click here. And it has so it has the graphic here of where we're at there on the matrix. It has these extended descriptors for students and teacher, okay? And then it has these different video examples of different grades and different topics and needs. So this is more for a K through 12, okay, environment. This resource was made for that. But with that said, I've looked at through many of these videos, and they're applicable for adult learning as well. So if we look at this one here, for example, keyboarding skills, just going to kind of play this just to demonstrate some of these resources, and they can serve as an example, a model example of how you can apply these kind of skills in different contexts. So I'm just going to play a little of the video, and please let me know if you can hear the audio. Okay, let me just make sure the audio is shared. Yes, it is. Okay, and here we go.
In the beginning of the school year, I assigned keyboarding skills for more.
Can you hear that audio? Let me know, yes or no. Yes, thank you, Paul. Okay, here we go.
In the beginning of the school year, I assigned keyboarding skills for morning work. My goal for the students in having them practice their keyboarding skills on a daily basis is so that in the future and further on in the school year, we can do projects on word processing programs, and the children are competent typing, and the keyboarding skills won't hold them up. I found some websites, Typer Shark, that when the children have proficient typing skills, it helps with their speed and also helps with their spelling as the shark comes across the screen and they have to type the words on the sharks.
Okay, great example here of like gamifying the skill of typing, right? That's like a mid-tech kind of skill. It's a very important skill. And so again, you know, you can see some of these videos maybe look a little dated, maybe some of the programming looks a little dated, but it still applies, right? The approach, the framework is still extremely relevant, okay? So you can see here for that intersection here of active learning entry level, you have other examples. Wanted to play you another example here of, let me see here. I have it here. Collaborative learning. Okay, so let's go back to our matrix and go to collaborative learning, and let's look at collaborative learning and transformation. Okay, and this is something that I've done before. Again, you see the matrix here where it is, some extended descriptors for students and teachers. Students regularly use technology tools to collaborate with peers and experts who may be in different locations, may represent different experiences, cultures, and point of view. Teacher seeks partnerships, right, outside of the class to gain access to experts. So here's one here on a podcast. So let's see how they're kind of applying these audio video tools to strengthen, to reinforce learning here. So this is geography, and let's see how they're collaborating for transformative learning.
This project is part of a collaborative online geography podcast quiz called Where in the World. The show has podcasts created by students, and today's lesson involved a group of multi-age students creating their podcast to add to the show. The focus of this particular group of podcasts is about learning about geography, community, and culture. Together, the students wrote up a script about their local community that described their local community, and they wanted to give clues such as famous landmarks or geographic descriptions of the area, and some of the other schools even included like longitude and latitude. After writing their scripts, the students used the GarageBand program to record what they wrote, and then they added some sound effects. And what I really loved about this project was watching the students, the way they collaborated and deciding which elements they wanted to include within the project. Right now, after this is posted, then we would wait for emails to come in with other students' guesses of where they think that we are in the world. And if they do not get it correct, then we'll send additional clues, and if they get it correct, then we'll send them a postcard from our area. Extensions of this lesson can be done using a world map and keeping track of the different places where everyone is located.
We hope you figured out where.
All right, wow, great activity there, right? So I'm hoping that some of these resources here give you ideas. You can see how we can see how they are placed on this matrix. You can see that it's a mix of low-tech, mid-tech to high-tech resources, online and offline resources, interacting with an audience outside of the class, you know, if that's possible, kind of in a gamified way to guess where they are in the world, and all these multimedia kind of tools, right, in order to achieve the goals of the project. So in a very collaborative way. Okay, and the last one here that I wanted to look at was this goal directed. So we have down here goal directed, and what was it? Goal directed digital daily planner. I forgot which one this was, but let's see if we can find it here. Let's see. I'm gonna click through to find it here. Okay, so let me see here. I don't think it was this one. Wasn't this one, but you can see all the different activities here. Sorry, I'm just trying to find this one video that I looked at first. Here we go. All right, so digital daily planner. So this one is with kids, but it's just as relevant for adults. So let's watch this.
Well, to start our day, we go in our daily planner, and, well, of course, we write it down in our planners. And after we do our daily planner, we do our classworks, math or language arts or typing. Once we're done with that, we go to an educational website, something educational like FunBrain. Well, if we forget what we have to do, we sometimes just go back into our daily planner and look at it. And at the end of the week, we do what I learned this week, which is just like a review, what we did this week.
All right, great approach, right? Starting with a plan, um, then going to specific software that can be applied and practiced individually, reflecting the learning, applying learning strategies. I mean, this is all metacognition at work, right? Starting from, in this case, the third grade, but we can start that with our 30-year-olds. So again, just kind of thinking about what resources available and how we can apply that across this matrix for active, collaborative, constructive, authentic, goal-oriented. You don't have to do all of them all the time, but what's appropriate and at what level, right? Entry, adoption, adaptation, infusion, or transformative. Let me know what you think. Is this matrix helpful to you, or is this resource helpful to you? I'm just curious to know if you find something like this helpful to you. All right, great. Excellent. All right, great to hear. I'm happy to hear that. So I'm also looking at here, just thank you all for answering Gonzalo's questions there about Atlo. Thank you all for supporting each other in our webinar community here. Okay, moving on. All right. Okay, so applying low-tech to high-tech tools to support learning. So the rationale for this is I want to provide kind of an outline of how to think of how we can scaffold activities in general, and then within that scaffolding of activities, how can we implement technology, using low-tech to high-tech tools. Okay, so I'm going to kind of breeze through this a little bit just to provide an example. So we have here the kind of lesson description, and for example, using business course. I pulled this from IET program catalog here on IPDE, which is excellent. It has all these different programs and locations and descriptions of what they are. So I pulled it for this business program. And the topic and task is website creation, like we're building a website for a business. And I created these objectives so students will analyze websites using a rubric. Students will design a website to promote a business. Students will present their website design to others. Students will provide constructive feedback on designs, and students will vote on their favorite design. So always planning with the end in mind, thinking about our objectives, and that's really going to help us to plan our activities and make sure we're on track. Pulling in some reasoning and language arts standards, right? And if we hear C4.1, 5.1, and 5.2, I pulled this matrix from the IPDE website. And if we look here at the communication, okay, and we have research, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. We have researching, right? Researching and using information, creating, collaborating, multimedia, technology, and communication. So these are just some of these kind of competencies and standards that we are addressing within this. So I found this helpful just to say, what's the framework say? How we're addressing the framework, and keep this in mind. These curriculum frameworks are like the baseline. We can always go beyond, okay? But just knowing how we're addressing these can really help us with reporting to our program levels, to the state level, and just show also learners, hey, we are applying competency-based learning here, okay? And this is how it's going to go beyond to meet your goals and your needs in the classroom and beyond. And then resources. What are our resources? So model websites, checklists, rubrics, low, mid, or high-tech tools. Okay, so this is just a kind of outline here just to get us going. And so let's look at this in a specific instructional sequence. So the first is to build an activate schema. So prior knowledge, right? How learners can relate to the activity or what kind of information is needed for them to understand the activity. The next is scaffolding, right? How are we going to support and challenge learners to facilitate feedback, right? So that can be, for example, an I do, we do, you do approach. More specifically here, how are we going to scaffold activities where they're highly supported, right? How they are mediumly kind of supported. So high support can be like, maybe kind of rote kind of learning or mimicking or, very kind of like structured copying or fill in the blank. Medium support, releasing some of that support, okay? Students might personalize examples still in a supported way, to then like lightly supported, right? So apply skills still with a clear task and with roles, but not so much to where they're copying or like, filling in like a close. They're just kind of jumping in and starting to apply the skills in a more personalized and potentially more kind of like creative way. And then we have this next instructional sequence. That's after that, after the scaffolding, after the application in the classroom, the practice, we go to reflection. So this can be like an exit ticket. It can also be the next class as students are coming in. Analyze learning and teaching. Analyze kind of what they have learned, areas of still need, right? Analyze what they have done well and analyze areas that they still need some support. Next steps, out of class tasks to prepare, review, extend, and collaborate. So what are the next steps? How are we going to reinforce this learning in the next class as well as outside of class? What resources and strategies can we use to reinforce this learning, right? That can be in your program at like a computer lab, or it can be outside of the program with some kind of homework activity. Okay, now let's look at this instructional sequence with some more specific examples. So build and activate schema. So the goal here is activate prior experience and knowledge and introduce the concept of website. Remember the topic there was it was a business program. We're trying to build a business website. So we're going to activate prior experience or knowledge, we're going to have some discussion, right? What websites do you use? What makes a website helpful or confusing, right? So that could be kind of a discussion. So let me just ask you all if you can put in the chat there, what makes a website useful? If you can just kind of answer that question in the chat. And we can brainstorm website features just to kind of determine, right, what we know about websites. For example, website features, right? So homepage, navigation, images, contact info. And what are different features of a good website? So this is enabling us to kind of build maybe some knowledge around vocabulary specific to the task here of websites. Some students might know more than others, so we can engage in some peer learning as well. And so we're looking here at some of these things, right? What makes a website useful? And Paul says simple. Gonzalo says useful. Christina, free. Yeah, free and easy, right, to navigate. Heather, cited resources. Jana, clear, direct, free. Ana Marie, organized, right? Maria, true research. So all of these are very relevant. All of these are very relevant to certain needs, right? If we have something as teachers, we want resources that are easy to access, free. If we're looking for information, we want it to be cited. We want it to be like research-based, right? We want it to be objective. So you can see how we can start to get into kind of like an understanding of how to analyze websites. And that's the first goal here. And we can use this website analysis rubric. So I'm going to just show it to you here. This is a link also that's provided to you on the website, on the presentation. I'm just going to provide it there as well to you for being here live and synchronously with me today. But if you're watching this asynchronously, okay, you can access this link as well. So just make a copy of this and save it, okay? So website analysis rubric, a tool. This is a low-tech tool that we can use to analyze websites. So you can modify this for whatever category. So the categories here are layout and structure, color scheme, typography, images and multimedia, responsiveness, navigation, content and readability. I like Maria's thing, like, you know, truthfulness, right? So we can add these kinds of things, categories. And then these different excellent, good, needs improvement, or poor, right? So different ways to kind of score a website. And we have key vocabulary and terms that we have here. Again, building some vocabulary knowledge specific to developing digital skills and digital literacy. Okay, excellent. Then we have some low-tech exploration. So we can, you know, if we don't have online access, we can print websites or screenshots of good and bad examples of websites. And we can, you know, if we have online access, we can do this real time. We can project them on those smart boards or, you know, whatever you're using, and start to kind of apply this rubric collectively. We do approach, right? So here, for example, are, you know, some websites, right, that we can look at Wix, or we can look at Squarespace, all kinds of places where they have great examples of websites, and you can start to analyze them based on these different categories, right? You can also have these, Squarespace, I like that they provide these different templates. So you can analyze different templates and color schemes, okay, for layouts. So now we have like design and art and visual, like providing visual support and design support for communicating information. All very important if we are developing a business, right? So thinking about like what can you use, and of course, all of these like tools now have some kind of AI software. So utilizing these kind of AI technologies, whether it be these kind of websites or ChatGPT, to kind of get some feedback and analysis. The next step we have is scaffolding, right? So we have the objective, we have that website analysis, we can have a pair activity, students analyze a website together, okay? And then we have, again, you know, the tech here. So it could be low tech, provided printed worksheets to complete the rubric, or high tech, use a Google document rubric to submit responses. That could be done asynchronously. Then we have another activity, you know, objective, brainstorm and structure a website designed for businesses. So we can do a think, pair, share activity for brainstorming. We can use a graphic organizer. So here's just an example that could be printed or provided digitally, just to provide an outline, right, of how to start organizing a website. So website name, purpose of the website, target audience, main features, key pages and content, okay, design and layout, call to action, website layout sketch. So you can see that even though this is a high-tech kind of activity, you can utilize low-tech tools. I'm going to provide that link here for this website planning graphic organizer. And again, this is for you to copy and to modify for you to utilize as appropriate for your students. Okay, and then activity 3, light support, right? So this is where they apply that website design to create a website prototype. And they can assign roles. I'm a big proponent of assigning certain roles if students are going to be working collaboratively in a group. You can assign them, or you can let students self-assign. And you can use these kinds of like work roles, right? So your job as a reader or a checker, your job as a writer, you know, of content, your job as a designer, artist. So have those roles kind of like clearly laid out, or brainstorm what those roles are with the students, and then some kind of helpful language that they can apply as that role to help them engage and act out that role and practice that role, right? You can switch up roles with different activities. Again, you can assign them, or you can let students select what their roles are. Here's some other ones: designer, content writer, media specialist. So something to kind of say, what role do you feel comfortable with? What role do you want to like learn and develop? Okay, so this is a safe place to practice these roles and take some leadership collaboratively. And then finally, this reflection. Okay, awesome, Thomas. Good to know. Finally, with this reflection, this is that exit activity. Okay, what was the highlight for you in this activity? What do you think you did well in this activity? This is this rose approach, right? What are some things you're kind of proud of? The bud, what is an area that can be explored or practiced further? What's something that's kind of developing still for you? What are you looking forward to doing in the next activity? And then the thorn, what is something that was difficult, or something that isn't working? This is for students to reflect as well as to share with us, okay, their teachers. So we can kind of understand how we can reinforce certain things as well as to like address certain issues. Tech here can be writing reflection journals using those pencils and paper, or high tech, even recording short videos using Flipgrid, right? Padlet, Screencastify, Loom, any of these things where, it could be like an audio journal. And then finally, next steps, right? Out of class. So extended learning through review, collaboration, and refinement. A low-tech option can be analyze printouts of websites and complete that checklist. Mid-tech can be visit a website at home and complete the checklist or rubric. Extended could be a low-tech option, draw an image or write text for their website to add next session. Mid-tech can be find or create an image to write text for their website, right? And then to collaborate, low-tech can be getting input from peers or family members, other educators about websites, doing maybe a survey. High-tech can be shared that draft website and use screen recordings to provide feedback to others, to kind of present their websites at this kind of draft, stage before actually building a website, if that's something that is a possibility. And then finally, a presentation, right? Public presentation. So this can be to share website designs, provide peer feedback, and even vote on the best design. So a presentation, we know when we present something that takes us to the next level of motivation, focus to detail, provide peer feedback. This is a skill and an art. 2 positive comments, 1 suggestion, what they liked, maybe a possible area to improve, and voting. Vote on the best kind of, website. And that could be different categories. The most trustworthy website, the most design, friendly website, the freest website. And then again, these can be low tech, present website on a mock-up on a poster paper. Mid-tech can present website mock-up on a PowerPoint, and high-tech can present website mock-up on a web building platform such as Wix. Okay, there it is. Wow, we got through it. Thank you all so much. I know that was a lot. I really hope this information was useful to you. Most specifically, these frameworks and these resources for us to start thinking about, how can we analyze our instruction and how can we leverage our strengths, both as educators as well as our student strengths, and how can we address areas that we can focus on, right? Both in our teaching and our learners' learning. Thank you, Gonzalo. Please take that feedback survey while you're doing that. Please join IPDE for our next webinar Wednesday. That's May 7th at 3 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. The topic is on GED math readiness, word problems. Okay, so listen, thank you all so much. Even though you were muted, I couldn't hear you or see you, I felt you. Thank you all so much for your participation, for your expertise, for your collaboration and answering questions in the Q&A. I wish all of you all health, happiness, all the inspiration, and continued success. Thank you.